Welcome. I'm so heartened to greet you. And while this virtual world will never replace real life interaction, it's wonderful to have technology that enables our critical work to continue during a time of crisis. America faces a reckoning. We're in a remarkable, painful, and hopefully watershed moment in our history. The world is heartbroken and angry over the brutal murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. There's an awakening happening, and this is our time. CDFIs exist to advance racial and social and economic justice. This is our time to lean into the fight for the communities disproportionately affected by COVID-19, an impact compounded by civil unrest. Our industry is rooted in the knowledge that Black lives matter. We were born out of the civil rights movement and the uprisings of the 60s and 70s. And never in my career have I heard so many plaintive and powerful calls for the very work our field has done for more than 35 years. After Breonna Taylor's murder in Louisville, people cried, "Look at us. Look at our boarded up communities. We have just one grocery store." And Kimberly Jones' viral video summed up 450 years of economic disenfranchisement. And she said, "We don't own anything." And Reverend Barber explained that George Floyd struggled for economic breath long before he was murdered. And so our CDFIs have responded. And I've heard from so many of you. Lou Zarisha of Opportunity Fund called me at the beginning of the crisis and said, "We need to act quickly." And Frank Altman of Community Reinvestment Fund called and said, "If we can get the funds, I know we can help." MoFi's Dave Glazier said, "I can help Native CDFIs." And he reached out and helped many OESTA members get those PPP loans. And Jesse Lee at the Renaissance Center said, "If we can help now, people will always remember." So now we do have the nation's attention. Congressional leaders on both sides of the aisle have pushed to have CDFIs be part of not only the crisis response, but also the long-term recovery responses. When the PPP was in its earliest stages and it left out CDFIs, leaders like Marco Rubio and Nancy Pelosi worked to have us included. And as a result, CDFIs were able to get $7 billion of PPP loans to the very small and rural and Native minority businesses. And now new partners like Google are stepping in to increase the capacity of CDFIs to move money into minority and low income and low wealth communities. And investors like Robert Smith are amplifying our message. So our field must seize this moment to keep our CDFIs strong, because we can't get to a shared recovery without more capital. And that's why OFN and our partners are advocating to Congress for a $1 billion appropriation to the CDFI fund. And this will leverage so much more capital that can close cavernous gaps in small business financing. And with it, we can support more affordable housing, equitable healthcare, community facilities, and programs. Now is our time to push hard and keep focused. The media will move on, but this galvanizing period of civil protest and the acute urgency of fixing COVID-19, and in this time, CDFIs will remain in our rural and our urban and our Native communities. And we must remain vigilant and not let America go back to saying that communities filled with Black and brown Americans just don't matter. We can't let America go back to saying to any community that poverty is your fault. And we can't let America go back to ignoring the systems that got us here. Persistent poverty didn't just happen. Racial injustice didn't just happen. It's been a systemic march, and it's time to address inequality once and for all. Our vigilance in making small business financing available to those who are hardest to finance is part of the fight. As lenders and social justice fighters, we know that when small businesses succeed, jobs and wealth and power and voice grow. And that's why we're here. This is the work we will discuss during this historic Small Business Finance Forum. In closing, my childhood friend, Mr. Rogers, said that in crisis and in fear, look to the helpers. We are the helpers, and we are the healers. And I'm so uplifted to be with you with so many CDFIs, with our small businesses and with our partners. We have tremendous work ahead. And we have the hearts and the heads and the hands to do it.
CDFIs are fighting for a shared economic recovery among rural, urban, and native small businesses. CDFIs are on your side. From emergency relief to finance and technical assistance for reopening and rebuilding, we're here for you now and for the long term. Axiom Chicago, in partnership with Community Reinvestment Fund, helped Eliuth Guzman, owner of Latin Plate Catering and Events, get a Paycheck Protection Program loan to keep her business running.
Having the Action team giving me all the support and all the guidance and helping in every step of the way, it feels like someone believes in our project and I have a backup. It motivates me to work harder by knowing that I have some other people that are actually doing work as well for my company.
AltCap funded Chris Evans of T-Shirt King, a small business that creates custom promotional items for schools, sports teams, and more. AltCap quickly stepped in where mainstream finance did not.
Nobody will ever forget COVID-19. No one will ever forget the word quarantine. And our family, our business will never forget AltCap. They came and they saved the day when there's a huge question mark.
MoFi gave a loan to Nikki and Alan Bond of Outlaw Diner so they could stay in business and pay their employees amid the COVID-19 shutdown.
We couldn't have done it without MoFi's support and believing with us and helping us prepare everything that we were going to need. We're definitely going to make it.
Business Center for New Americans helped Archana Pakaral, owner of Linux Spa and Nails, get a loan for her business, as well as an emergency grant from New York City.
Thank you so much for being there. All my bad days, they've been there. Their professionalism and their help and their knowledge and their resources matters a lot to me. In the COVID-19 crisis, they were my source of help.
Native 360 helped Eli and Bethany Sears open Bad Boy Inc. just as COVID-19 shut everything down. Now they'll help with securing a PPP loan to keep the couple's dream business going.
Pete and his crew stepped in, and they did way more than what they said they was going to do. They went above and beyond trying to help us get this going. Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely thank you.
Yes, 1,000,000 times.
Here's a shout out to the tenacious small businesses in every community. We are on this journey with you. CDFIs are on your side. Together we'll keep America moving forward.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Donna Fabiani, the EVP for Knowledge Sharing at OFN, and I'm coming to you from my home in Washington, D.C. I've been looking forward to this day for months. Of course, this is not quite how I envisioned the Small Business Finance Forum when we began planning back in February, but we've all adapted. I have to say I'm truly proud of the caliber of our speakers and the depth and breadth of the program that we'll be presenting to you over the next 2 days. Our opening plenary focuses on the impact of COVID-19 and the current civil unrest on our small businesses and looks forward to the recovery ahead. The breakout sessions cover 4 critical topics for CDFI small business lenders operating in today's environment, beginning with the customer and ending with CDFI's own sustainability. We start today with 3 concurrent sessions focused on the small business experience, followed by 3 sessions on risk management in uncertain times. Tomorrow, we begin the day with sessions on capitalization, followed by sessions on CDFI sustainability strategies. Our closing plenary focuses on how we must all pull together for the future, welcoming new financial partners such as Google and new thought partners such as Robert Smith of Vista Equity Partners to the space. Throughout the forum, we'll be featuring the small business owners we're all working for. You just heard from 5 in the CDFI's On Your Side video. Shortly, you'll get to know SHANELLE SNOWDEN of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. SHANELLE owns a healthcare services business and is part of our opening panel. We strongly encourage you to view the 4 Meet a Small Business videos we'll air at the breaks. And at the end of today's sessions at 4:30 Eastern, join us for a cooking demonstration by Chef Terrence Phillips, owner of Something Fishy restaurant in Apopka, Florida. And if you're at home with little ones around, they might enjoy the Small Business Owner Coloring Book we sent to all attendees. The coloring book is also available to download on the event site. Now let's hear from 2 CDFI supporters, an esteemed legislator and a key administration official. Their swift support and enactment of federal programs, like the Payroll Protection Program, are aiding in the economic recovery of hundreds of thousands of small businesses.
Hello, I'm Senator Marco Rubio, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and it is an honor to welcome you to the first ever virtual Small Business Finance Forum hosted by the Opportunity Finance Network. In such an unprecedented time, entrepreneurs and minority and women-owned small businesses face an even greater need for capital. CDFIs and other mission-driven lenders are leading the charge to help businesses in underserved markets access relief and recover from the dire financial impacts of the coronavirus. As chairman, I have been proud to work with my colleagues and the administration to ensure that CDFIs and mission lenders have expedited approval and access to the Paycheck Protection Program. That's why in the Paycheck Protection Program and Healthcare Enhancement Act, Congress included a $30 billion set-aside for community financial institutions. And I was also pleased to see that Treasury and SBA recently implemented a $10 billion set-aside specifically for CDFIs to access Phase 2 PPP funds, which totals nearly $40 billion in set-asides for mission lenders to date. Thank you for the around-the-clock work and guidance you give to our nation's small businesses. Your efforts do not go unnoticed, and you are truly appreciated. And I look forward to working and continuing to work with you to keep CDFIs strong.
The finances of our nation's most vulnerable small businesses have been entirely upended by the COVID-19 crisis. Black, Latinx, Native, rural, and low-income communities across America are disproportionately affected from both a health and economic perspective. We know there can be no recovery without the small businesses that are the heartbeat of America's in every community, bringing jobs, goods, and services that each community treasures and needs. Our opening plenary is titled, Ensuring a Shared Recovery Across America. Our moderator is Marla Blow, the North America lead at the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. Marla was the founder and CEO of FS Card, a credit card designed to move small dollar loan customers into a more affordable product. She has experience as an entrepreneur, an angel investor, and a federal regulator. We are so pleased to have a distinguished panel joining Marla. These include members of Congress, a senior representative from JP Morgan Chase, a CDFI CEO, and a small business owner. Please welcome Marla and her panel.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Marla Blow. I'm very excited to be a part of this plenary session here and very excited to join all of you in the center here. I am with the Center for Inclusive Growth at MasterCard, where I lead our North America Social Impact. And we work quite closely with CDFIs, and I'm very excited to share a fantastic panel with all of you here today. The case for CDFIs, the support for small business, the importance of recovery and preserving the small business universe and ecosystem is not at all lost on me, and I feel is an easy case to make. But in particular, in my own instance, I bring a personal perspective to that table. I was an entrepreneur myself prior to joining MasterCard. I built a company that I ran for 6 years. I went through all of the phases of business ownership and entrepreneurship, raising capital, managing the team, delivering products, addressing business questions and problems, found myself needing the support and confidence of a strong financial intermediary to enable what we were doing at FS Card, which was the name of my business. And now here at MasterCard, I continue the work of enabling small business existence and thriving through our work in the center, where we support CDFIs because we believe strongly that CDFIs are the key and are the link to the small business ecosystem. It's incredibly important to us to know that there are people who completely understand these businesses, who understand the importance of their continued work, who are able to reach the level that these businesses need and meet the requirements to enable them to access capital, to provide technical assistance, and most importantly, in difficult situations like the one we're in now, during COVID, during an economic shutdown driven by the need for social distancing, during times of crisis as we face on our racial justice front, that they can step in and understand and engage at the level that meets the needs of the entrepreneurs they serve. That is why we have been supporters of the CDFI sector for the last 4 or 5 years here at the center. We provide grants in the form of enabling technology modernization, enabling loan forgiveness. We've been very closely aligned with the work that helps drive the day-to-day of our CDFI partners and has enabled them to continue delivering service during this moment of having to be able to do so digitally and not being able to meet with their constituents face to face. So, with that as a lead in, I would like to jump right into the conversation here. I'm really excited about this panel and about this opportunity to hear from so many distinguished people and so many experienced leaders on this front. So, why don't we jump in and hear from Shanelle on the front line running her business? Shanelle, let me turn it over to you. Have you introduced yourself and talk a bit about your organization, your business, and how you're faring through this moment of crisis and change in our economy?
Yeah, sure. My name is Chanel Snowden. I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, born and raised, and I am the owner of Legacy Home Health Services. I started my business because of my mom. She was always community outreach focused and loved giving back. She was into the home health service field, and in about 2007, she started exhibiting some memory issues, and turns out she had onset dementia. She was 50 years old. I was 16 at the time, and myself, my brother, and my dad were her primary caregivers. And it was such a hard time because there weren't a lot of resources, there weren't a lot of reliable help out there, and we struggled. So I recognized that gap, and me starting this business is in honor of my mom and also to fill that gap. So we provide skilled nursing, companionship, and respite to the members of the community. We were affected by the COVID pandemic. Were stopped receiving our invoices, and things just started to get really difficult for us. And I was connected with WIBIC, and they sent me all these resources as far as the PPP and other grants, and they actually helped me get a lot of funding for my business to keep us up and running during this difficult time.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just want to add, I am coping with and contending with a lot of what you talk about. My own mother is dealing with late stage Alzheimer's at this point, and the impact on all of us, on our families, and counting on the support of organizations like yours to make it through these moments is right in front and center for me as well. So thank you for what you do, and I'm really glad to hear that you've been able to continue doing that work. One of the things I just wanted to ask you about a little bit is just tell us a little bit more about what you think you'll be able to do going forward from here. As you think through the impact of COVID and look at where you'll be able to take your business, has that changed, or you still have the same kinds of plans? Give us a little bit of detail about the future for yourself.
Yes, I actually think that this pandemic was a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to look at the business structure and kind of develop where I want to go with the business. So I want to expand and add more services such as social work, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then also at a caregiver model because the caregiver is also or often forgotten because they have such an important role. So just kind of giving back to the caregiver. So I do see my business expanding even after this pandemic.
Fantastic. Really excited to hear that. Let's bring our congressman into the conversation, and let's start with Congressman Dwight Evans from Philadelphia. Congressman, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your support of CDFIs. And I really want to just start with the idea of the support you have been providing and the importance in this conversation about a shared economy, about people of color participating, about the distribution of the PPP program. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on in your district and how you were able to provide the kind of support and enable the support for CDFIs on the basis of what you're seeing there?
First, thank you for this opportunity to allow me to speak today. Basically, the district I'm from is a rather interesting. It's the district where America started. When you talk about Independence Hall, talk about the Constitution Center, 244 years ago. So it's important to understand the symbolic aspect of the city of Philadelphia and what it means to the entire nation and to the world. Pennsylvania has about 12 million people. The district I represent sits sort of in the southeast corner of Philadelphia. It has about 25% poverty, one of the major cities with the greatest level of poverty. With this pandemic on top of the level of poverty, you're seeing a huge impact. My relationship developed over many years with the reinvestment fund in terms of a CDFI, where I really understood. And I look at CDFI as the first responders when you begin to talk about economic development, you talk about social justice. In terms of the roles that you play a very significant role. Well, I understood that although I've been in Congress only for 4 years, I've understood that many years. There was an initiative that I was very much a part of called the Supermarket Initiative, and I worked with the Reinvestment Fund. So from that knowledge that I gained at the state level is basically what I transferred in my own experience to the national level. I figured if we could do it in Pennsylvania, we could do it in the nation. So that was the combination that came together that helped my own development, understanding if you was going to develop a small African American business, Latino businesses, and others, that it was important to have the financial tools available. And CDFIs provide that finance. So I see it only but a natural as you look towards the future, the CDFIs must play a major role in the economic transformation of America. We must reimagine in terms of this economy in order to ensure that there's income inequality in communities. And I believe CDFIs can be that bridge.
Thank you so much, and could not agree more. I should add, I was an undergraduate student in the city of Philadelphia, so that is a place also near and dear to my heart. I have connections here across the panel, and really excited to always hear about what's going on in Philadelphia. Let me just ask you one more question before we move on and bring in Congressman Cox here as well. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in terms of the possibility for bipartisan support, and just give us a little bit of a feel for what you're hearing across the aisle?
My sense is that with CDFIs and the economy, and particularly with small business, it's not something that there's work. I don't want to minimize the amount of work that you have to do, but I think that the element transcends urban America, rural America, suburban America, and that it plays very easily to the aspect of selling the ideas of what CDFIs can do. As a matter of fact, I can tell you right here in my own state, they targeted here in Pennsylvania to do something around CDFI. The governor had it a part of his agenda in the budget he passed. So it's clear to me, may it be here in Pennsylvania or may it be in the nation's capital, there is a true understanding. And the part of it is that we all recognize as we're going to try to work with this economy and particularly get to the the most critical need, the constituency. So the constituencies that have vulnerable communities, communities that have been left out. So a part of what I consider the economic toolbox is CDFIs. And CDFIs, in my view, play that role that can really be helpful, as you saw in the HEROES Act, as you saw in the CARES Act, as you saw the fact of the matter, CDFIs, unfortunately started out not being where they should have been. I think that everybody came to the recognition that we needed CDFIs to be a part of that economic toolbox.
Thank you very much for that. Let's bring in Congressman TJ Cox from California's Central Valley into the conversation. Congressman, thank you also for joining us here. We're really excited to have you as a part of this conversation. And really just want to ask, as a steadfast and long supporter of CDFIs, tell me about your personal experience and your backdrop as to why support for CDFIs has been a longstanding issue of yours that you've been able to rally around.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. And the fact is that I'm sitting here as a member of Congress, along with my good friend and colleague, Congressman Evans, because of my background and work with CDEs. I had founded a CDE to serve the needs of the Central Valley here of California. The district I represent, California's 21st district, could actually be classified as one of the poorest congressional districts in America. Many of you may know a number of years ago that Oxfam, I think Measure America, did this Human Development Index that classified areas with respect to poverty rate, educational attainment, life expectancy, and based on that criteria, we were, dead last in America. And so I founded a CDE to be able to tackle those types of problems: lack of access to healthcare, educational opportunities, social services, and so on. And the tools that we needed to be able to get those things done really came from CDFIs. And just as Congressman Evans was relating, I was able to use that experience directly to what I'm doing there today. And so right now, we're certainly seeing challenges with regard to justice and equality. And that's something that CDFIs have been addressing since their inception, with their basic mission is to bring a measure of economic equality, or actually economic equity and economic justice to some of our most deserving census tracts in not only urban America, but rural America as well. So the absolute work that I've been doing and what I continue today, CDFIs are central to that.
Fantastic. And thank you for that. And I certainly share your sentiment about that importance of focus on equity and bringing support to communities that otherwise really find themselves struggling to gain a toehold. Can you just talk a little bit about where you see CDFIs playing a role in the recovery phase? And as we think through this moment of adjusting to a new normal for now and how our economy functions, and thinking ahead to coming out of that, there will be opportunities for CDFIs to change what they do a bit. And curious about what suggestions or guidance or advice you might have for CDFIs going into that recovery phase and what role you see them playing.
No, that's such a great question, and that's really has to be the focus of this Congress and the measures that we've taken, and that's when something that the Democratic caucus certainly fought for. Give you an example: when the PPP first rolled out, I was talking to bankers here in the district, and they said, "Hey, listen, there's going to be a real problem."
Looks like we're having a moment of technical issues there. We'll bring Congressman TJ Cox back when we're able to reconnect and bring his feed back up. In the interim, why don't we turn to Christopher Hollins? Christopher is from JP Morgan Chase. He's been supporting CDFIs also for quite a long period of time, and JP Morgan Chase has been supporting entrepreneurs of color through the work with CDFIs well before the crisis and through the crisis as well. So, Christopher, why don't you tell us a little bit about why JP Morgan Chase decided to really double down on its commitment to CDFIs and these kinds of customers during this period of time?
Okay, so thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to this important audience. Much of what you are doing is basically the meat and potatoes of how small businesses not only get their start, but continue to run and build economies within neighborhoods. Part of the reason we're really focused in this area is because we've done a tremendous amount of work and studies on the following. When you look at communities of color, women, military vets, that entire population, they have four needs that we continually see that are consistent. They don't trust banks because either in the branch, the individuals don't have the knowledge and or experience, or they perceive some bias. There's a lack of support and outreach to those communities in a general fashion. This is how they feel about the banking industry. There's a lack of educate or access to education, which then prevents business owners from making their most ideal business decisions to help their businesses actually grow and thrive. And then lastly, it's access to capital. From my perspective, CDFIs already have trust in the community. CDFIs, from their technical assistance perspective, are the ones who are providing the outreach and the education. And in many cases, when properly funded, are able to provide that access to capital. As I've seen through the PPP process, many small businesses don't need millions of dollars in order to survive. They need tens of thousands of dollars. And that is a segment where CDFIs can play a fantastic and most important role. And Chase wants to be very much there to help support CDFIs in that venture. We recognize that we need to do more and we're going to do more on the ground, but we do that in partnership with other organizations that are even more closely rooted within those communities to create that trust, education with an opportunity for access to capital.
Thank you for that. That is absolutely very well said, and I think speaks volumes about the importance of these communities. And can you just give us a feel? JP Morgan Chase was the #1 PPP lender through this crisis and stepped into that program. Can you just give us a little bit of color on the internal commitment to that program and the ability and the willingness on JP Morgan Chase's part to really participate in that quite actively and really step up and support our economy?
Yeah, so just for a little bit of stats, I think there was about $30 billion that was through the PPP program through Chase, and about 250,000 applicants were able to receive those funds. We stood up a process that became digital literally within 2 weeks and a day or so, starting from ground zero. So, not knowing exactly what the rules were going to be for PPP, we put hundreds of people basically working every day, in many cases 18 plus hours a day, in order to make certain that we could address this need. And we are still not done. We're continuing to think through what happens through the forgiveness process. We want to try and help those who were unable to receive a PPP loan through us. In some of the work that I've been doing, we've been pointing individuals to either CDFIs or other organizations that can provide that PPP funding, primarily because they're not a client of Chase today. So we are absolutely all in on ensuring that as much of these funds gets to those who need it and apply for it as humanly possible. And we want to make certain that it's known that if we can't do it, we're trying to find ways to help those business owners get access to that capital because it's so important during this time. I have seen so many situations where $10,000 to $15,000, whether it's PPP or just a regular access to capital, is the difference between a business surviving or going under. So it is not at all, even every dollar becomes extraordinarily important in being able to manage this properly.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much for that. It looks like we have Congressman Cox back on the line here. So let's return to Congressman Cox and just finish that conversation, that thought on advice and what role you believe CDFIs may be able to play in this moment of recovery as we start to look ahead and come out of this moment of economic crisis and longer term rebuilding of our economy.
How is that? Okay.
Congressman Cox, are you there? If so, would welcome you to jump back in and finish your comment on the advice you may have and what role you imagine for CDFIs to play going forward. Okay. Looks like we are still facing some challenges with that feed. Why don't we jump over to Wendy Baumann and have Wendy, why don't you introduce yourself and talk a bit about the work you've been able to do in support of small business there in Wisconsin and what brought you to this arena and where and how you think about this moment that we're in.
Okay, well, thank you, Marla, and thank you, OFN, for keeping the beat here, and welcome to all the attendees of this gathering today and over the next couple days. So WBIC, from day one, 1987, focused its efforts on women, people of color, lower wealth individuals. We often call them and refer to them as pre-rich, and in the past 10 years have also additional focus effort on veterans and military-connected family. So from day one, that has been our focus. The Chanels of the world is what WBIC and fellow 1,100 other CDFIs across the nation are about, providing that support. And for CDFIs in the area of micro and small business, that's quality business and financial education programming, coupled with what we term as access to fair and responsible capital. So it's really good to have my comments right after Christopher, because he really teed it up well. So the first thing in terms of what our clients like Shanelle, even though she was very strong, it really seems like she's all set with things, and she is. And we're really grateful to be able to provide support to her with a loan, additional support on working through, the PPP, the EIDL, a variety of other forgivable loans and grants coming out on local and state level. The biggest piece that our customers are experiencing is the unknowingness of how long and how hard this is going to exist in a urban environment, rural environment, statewide, nation, and really globally. It's a nice way of saying fear. So what WBIC has done to try to reduce that is communication. So the first thing that we did as things began is, of course, our offices, 65 some staff, 7 regional offices throughout the state went virtual. So we got our teams organized. And then the biggest part was to organize ourselves to provide that support to our clients. And communication was key, specifically our loan portfolio. So we reached out to our 650 some distinct businesses in our loan portfolio, over approximately 22 million with numerous loans, and shared that we would be willing to provide a deferral for a couple months, pick it up on the back end, but we knew that these businesses needed some relief during this time. About half of our clients took advantage of that. Then we looked at the other programs happening at the time. For instance, the SBA disaster loan. Our state was entirely noted as an SBA disaster loan, and we shared that information. Unfortunately, many of our clients were not going to fit into the SBA disaster loan, although it's a very good product. But they weren't going to fit in because of not being quite bankable in that area. So we began to look at other things, and PPP came on the horizon and looked at that, studied that, and tried to provide support. We did YouTube's information about the PPP and saw that some of our clients were able to access them, even with the confusion in the marketplace going on nationwide on the PPP. But we also soon saw that they were going to need us a little bit more. So we got together as our leadership team, looked at kind of what monies we would need, and we determined we probably needed about $4 million to provide the PPP to our loan portfolio and perhaps others close to us. So we garnered that support from 2 financial institutions, PNC Bank and Northern Trust, went relatively quickly, and we got busy doing it. We're going to end up probably doing 100 PPPs, totaling approximately $2 million, because some of those businesses were ready with the banks, and in that second round, were able to access that. In addition, though, it's really walking them through how to handle that, how to make sure they're set up so it does end up being a forgivable loan. We promoted the EIDL program, as well as a lot of other pass-through grants through the state of Wisconsin, WDC, our economic development arm, $2 million passed through WIBIC that went out to 347 some businesses. We partnered with 2 other CDFIs, CAP Services, the Hmong Chamber, to get that out. Now we're looking at a lot of other programs the state's coming out with, returning to block grant funds to provide that support, all again while really keeping communication around and with that business owner. So that's sort of our overall piece.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think the piece that Shanelle took away from that was that she's pre-rich. So I think she's very happy to hear that she's working on being fully rich and moving past the pre-stage of that. Wendy, thank you for that. And can you talk a little bit about some of the ways you think about the breadth of the state of Wisconsin, right? You are a statewide lender. You have a variety of topographies and different kinds of communities across the state. And I'm particularly interested in the rural aspect, right? Rural communities have been hard hit in many cases, may not have broadband and are struggling with a host of challenges. How have you been engaging and supporting the rural community and the businesses in the rural parts of the state as you look across Wisconsin?
Yeah, I appreciate that. We are a rural state, and approximately 30 to 35% of our clients would be considered in rural communities. And that's part of our strategy in having offices in the Northeast region, 2 offices in the Southeast region, South Central, Southwest, is that really rural businesses and entrepreneurs, it's wonderful talking about things in general in Wisconsin and the nation. It's all about where that business is in that rural community. And so it's working with the county seat, the county hubs, the local municipalities, to make sure that they're aware of our services. Again, quality business and educational training. Right now, everything is virtual, online, and on demand. I mean, last year we saw over 5,000 unduplicated clients through our training, and 85% was that on ground. So we really have to work with our clients to say, we can still do this, we can still assist you with what's happening right now, but pivoting it to an online and on-demand area. Again, I go back to communication. Greater communication, having an understanding of what that is within a rural community, what that is on Main Street, working with state partners. They've added some support of rural businesses and micro businesses throughout the whole state. So communication is key, keeping that education going. And then again, looking at ways, my motto here from day one at WIBIC is to get to yes. We created 2 new loan products. Internally, there are fast and furious loans. Externally, there are fast track loans. Yes, we're still underwriting them, but before our box used to be this big in underwriting them, and now we're looking at what do we really need to look at to move to get to yes, to get that working capital, to get that term loan for that business owner, $10,000 or $15,000. We've already done dozens of these. Our pipeline has not been as full ever. While we were working really hard before the global and economic crisis was going on and the health pandemic was going on, and now with racial strife in our nation, we've never worked as hard, and I know that's the same for other CDFIs. So I appreciate the comment from the bank, working 18 hours. We were working even more than 18 hours. I said, just get these done. We got to move. Later, I'll get you a bottle of wine. We'll make you whole, but we have to move now for the sake of our clients. And I know that's the same sense with CDFIs across the nation.
Bravo. Thank you for that. Thank you for stepping in and for putting in the time. So I do want to get Shanelle back in here to respond to those comments. But before we go back to Shanelle, I understand that Congressman Cox is now back online and able to speak to both the question that we were talking about when we lost you there, which was around CDFIs and the advice for CDFIs in the recovery, as well as you obviously work in a rural community as well, and would love your thoughts on what the rural community situation has been from your perspective and how the CDFIs have stepped in there. Thank you for rejoining.
No, thank you so much. And, a great example, illustration of the need for adequate, reliable broadband services here in rural areas. And that is certainly going to be a focus, a very bipartisan focus with the infrastructure needs that we're looking at going forward. But with respect to how CDFIs play in rural areas, that it is absolutely a critical role. And really that outreach needs to be expanded very, very considerably. Here in the Central Valley, I think there's really only one CDFI that's actually based here in the Central Valley. We've got other CDFIs, particularly Clearinghouse CDFI and Access Plus Capital that serve a clientele here. But I can tell you, it's a very, very underserved market. And there's a huge demand and need for those types of service to be able to meet those unmet credit needs. And so the advocacy that the OFN provides, the CDFIs provide, is absolutely critical. I would absolutely recommend to always reach out to your member of Congress, your senators, your other electeds about what a vital role that CDFIs are playing in our economy, about the businesses that they are funding, about the individuals that they are funding, about how these projects and businesses wouldn't come to pass but for the good work that CDFIs do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And let's go to Shanelle. Shanelle, we just heard Wendy talking about finding ways to get loans done, to get capital into the hands of the businesses that need it. You talk a little bit about your experience of getting turned down from a bank and finding a way to gain access to capital through your work with WIBIC and what that meant for your business.
Sure. For a long time, I was looking for working capital, so I would go to traditional banks, and I didn't have any business credit, so I was denied left and right. And my aunt actually told me about WIBIC, and I went on the website, did some research, and I went ahead and applied, and I was granted a loan. They assigned me to a loan officer who was great. She walked me through the entire process. She helped me get my business plan in order, helped me get financial documents that I needed together. And then once I was funded, I was also assigned a small business consultant who has been my right hand man ever since. We meet on a regular basis and we talk about my financials and just ways that he can help me expand and grow my business. So they have been a great resource to me.
It's fantastic to see and hear that they were able to come through and provide that really gratifying story. If Congressman Evans is still on, why don't we circle back there and just want to bring to you the question around hope and talk a little bit about some of the concerns we hear that coronavirus and this moment in our economy is dealing a permanent blow to the small business sector and that we face. I've heard language that's been quite dire about what's going on and what the conditions are for small business. Talk a little bit about what should give us hope as we think about survival of small business and come through this moment in time.
Obviously, none of us have been through a pandemic. I mean, the fact of the matter is 100 years ago. And we do face a challenge. I don't profess to say to you that it will be easy, but that if anything, anything that is worth having is never easy. It takes that kind of commitment and kind of effort. CDFIs is what you heard me describe as one of the tools in the toolbox. And it is one of the tools that we need available to us if we are to make the kind of transformation. When I say transformation, I'm not referring to back to normal. I'm referring to reimagining a new type of normal. Small businesses are 50% of our backbone of our economy. They provide a huge social justice change when you really think about it. They generate jobs. They generate an aspect of people being involved in their community. And CDFIs are very much a part of that, as I said to you, as a lifeline. So we really have to use real imagination in terms of using this tool available to redefining the way we are today. It is going to take work. I don't profess to say it will be easy. It will take some effort. And I think that when you look at CDFIs, if anybody understands it, they understand. And that's why I was glad joining with my colleagues, Democrat and Republican, to understand the importance of them and give that sense of hope that you talked about, because that's what you're going to need. It's not going to happen easily, but I do believe that the basis is there for this to be implemented just by the cross section of policymakers who you have on this webinar. When you think about it, you have California to Florida to the Secretary of Treasury. So you think about that mix and the commonality of what it means to address the concerns that we have. So again, we just got to be very imaginative. We can't be fearful of change. Can't be fearful of change. Got to be imaginative in order to do the things we need to do.
Very important message there. Really appreciate that importance of hope and being able to get to work and understand that will not be easy, but proceeding nonetheless is critical. Christopher, let's bring you back into the conversation and just talk a bit about the mainstream financial sector and what role that team can play and that part of the economy can play by investing in CDFIs. How can the banking community more broadly do more to ensure equitable recovery and that participation in our economic prosperity reaches as broad a part of the market as possible?
Yeah, thanks. I think there's a couple of things, and they're actually rooted in some of the comments I made earlier. One thing that we own and we're responsible for as a banking industry is making certain that all of our colleagues who interact with small businesses, primarily within the branch and then occasionally up the chain as you start to move into larger small businesses, are really knowledgeable around cash flow management, how companies can better manage their receivables. In many cases, companies are not cash rich, not because they don't have great products and services, but because they can't get people to pay them on time or even in a reasonable time. So they end up with these, what I'll call cash deserts in between when they need to be able to pay their suppliers and be able to buy materials to keep the business going. So teaching people how to micromanage their cash flow becomes extraordinarily important at this time when there's so little bit of cash available. There's also a recognition that the financial services industry in general needs to be broader in its overall assistance with CDFIs, with fintech, with other boots on the ground, with NDIs, making certain that the entirety of the ecosystem is set and available for those to get responsible loans, assuming that they go through the proper capabilities to show that they are lowering their risk for lending to occur. And all of that can be done mathematically. I have not seen one situation where a business, irrespective of how it's been managed in the past, if showing an improvement over time, has been able to leverage better options for themselves over time. That is not a panacea. It is not fixed in a vacuum or very quickly, but responsibly, if we're doing that across our businesses and the way we're thinking about interacting with our clients and with our neighborhoods and our business owners, allows for recovery to happen. Then I think third and extraordinarily important, and both congressmen brought this up, is that connection with the community has to be deepened from a financial services perspective by getting out there, by not sitting behind your desk and waiting for people to come to you. Learn the businesses that are in the neighborhoods that you serve. Learn where the economic impact can occur, because sometimes great examples and or great ideas come at the ground level that not necessarily can be replicated in every zip code, but can be replicated there, and is what helps that particular neighborhood to grow and thrive. So those are three areas that I would see as most impactful for the financial services industry to actually take hold and to support CDFIs and the great work that they're doing.
Thank you for that, Christopher. That's a fantastic synopsis of the total set of concerns around rallying around support business. Hearing today from Shanelle Snowden, running her business locally in Wisconsin and addressing the need for home health care. Listening to our Congressman Evans and Congressman Cox here to share with us the importance of supporting CDFIs as a part of the economic toolbox, and really understanding the importance of the equity and justice that CDFIs are able to provide. Hearing from Wendy on the ground, finding ways to get loans done fast and furious. I remember Wendy mentioning that as a way to get loans through the process. And ultimately, Christopher rounding it out with the real demonstration of the ability of large institutions to mobilize, to work through partners, through CDFIs, and really emphasize the importance of getting onto the ground and understanding what's needed in the market. I want to thank all of you very much for joining us today. We really found this a fantastic kickoff to the Small Business Forum that is taking place today. I look forward to hearing what comes out of it, and I've really enjoyed being a part of it. Thank you very much. And Donna, I will turn it back over to you to continue the program. Have a great day.
Thank you, Marla, Shanelle, Wendy, Christopher, and our elected officials for that inspiring discussion. Thank you for sharing your perspectives, focusing us on the task at hand, and setting the stage for the 2020 Small Business Finance Forum. If I were standing on the stage in Chicago, I would be asking all of you attendees to give them a round of applause. Let me also take this moment to thank the sponsors who make this event possible. Our lead sponsor, JP Morgan Chase, and additional sponsors, MUFG Union Bank, Santander Bank, Wells Fargo, and Woodforest National Bank. We are grateful for your continued support of OFN and the CDFI industry. You can visit these sponsors as well as our other exhibitors, Google, Fund Consulting, Loanwell, and the CDFI Women's Network in the Partner Showcase 24/7. Now a few words about our virtual platform. By now, many of us have had at least some experience with the world of virtual events. OFN has had the benefit of learning from a number of our partners who've already produced virtual events, and we thank you for sharing your lessons with us. This is not easy stuff. I encourage everyone to take a few minutes to visit the FAQs page to ensure you're optimizing your virtual experience. On the FAQ page, you'll also find quick tips and troubleshooting steps. But if you're still confused, don't fret. Just click the Need Help button and our tech team will personally assist you. The agenda page will update in real time with each day's program. Please take a look and plan your day accordingly. The agenda includes direct links that will take you to your breakout sessions. Remember, all programming will be broadcast at the time listed, so do note the times of the sessions that you're most interested in. All times are Eastern. If you happen to miss something, check the In Case You Missed It section of the agenda page. We'll be posting recordings of some of the programming here after it's aired. Our 11 breakout sessions have both a chat and Q&A function. Use these to engage with the presenters and with each other. Some breakouts also offer the opportunity to join a small face-to-face group discussion after the session is over. Please note that space is limited in the discussion groups and will be available on a first-come, first-served basis. We'll conclude the plenary with one more greeting from an important federal partner. Afterwards, please enjoy your first Meet a Small Business video for a lovely meditation practice. Meet a Small Business videos are found in the Break tab. Enjoy the meditation in your break. See you back here at 2 p.m. Eastern for breakout sessions. Don't be late. They will start promptly on the hour. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to the members of the Opportunity Finance Network for your leadership in organizing this event. The work you do, as well as our community development financial institutions and all other small business lenders, is more important now than ever before. From the outset of the pandemic, the SBA has been laser focused on quickly getting economic relief to our country's most vulnerable small businesses. Following the President's leadership, the SBA launched the Paycheck Protection Program, or the PPP. We all know too well the challenges minority-owned small businesses face accessing capital. I think of Lori, small business owner of Civility Management Solutions in Maryland, who said, as an African-American service-disabled woman, she's had to fight to get capital. To address this, we expanded our number of authorized PPP lenders to include more than 300 CDFIs and 170 minority depository institutions, lenders dedicated to serving lower income and disadvantaged entrepreneurs. To date, since the PPP first launched, Nearly 1.2 million loans and $97 billion have been dispersed through the CDFIs and other small financial institutions specializing in connecting underserved communities with capital. After receiving a PPP loan for her government contracting business, Lori said it gave her and her employees such peace of mind, knowing they could stay open and continue collecting paychecks. Another woman, African-American entrepreneur Chris Ayers in Chicago, said the PPP loan her small transportation business received came just in time to pay her 6 employees. More than $500 billion in forgivable loans has gone to 4.5 million small businesses hammered by the pandemic. But what I'm most proud of is that the financial lifeline went to those who needed it the most. This administration, beginning with the President, extending to the Treasury Department and the men and women of the SBA, took extraordinary steps to ensure this program was administered with an eye toward equity. I'm very proud to report that nearly 45% of all those loans, both in terms of volume and value, have been dispersed in low-income counties across the country. In closing, this administration remains committed to ensuring our minority, women, and underserved small businesses can recover and once again resume their role as powerful vehicles for upward mobility in their communities. I want to give a heartfelt thank you to these exemplary network of leaders dedicated to providing opportunity and a bright future to our incredible small business owners.